Hey folks, Mike Johnson here. If it's got wheels and an engine, you're in the right place. On this channel, we dive into car repairs, maintenance tips, and everything you need to keep your ride running smooth. If you're into cars and want to keep learning, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. All right, enough talking. Let's get into it.
Some vehicles have a driveshaft that connects the transmission, or transfer case, to the differential. Although the driveshaft as a whole rarely fails, its seals and other components can wear out over time. When this happens, you'll probably notice that your vehicle is showing some undesirable symptoms. Symptoms of a faulty driveshaft. Driveshafts, also known as propeller shafts, are used in rear-wheel drive, RWD, four-wheel drive, 4x4, and all-wheel drive, AWD, vehicles. A driveshaft connects the transmission, or transfer case, to the differential. RWD vehicles have a driveshaft connecting the transmission to the rear differential. All-wheel drive vehicles with front-wheel drive layout have one driveshaft connecting the transfer case, also known as the transfer unit, to the rear differential. All-wheel drive vehicles with rear-wheel drive layout and 4x4 vehicles have two driveshafts connecting the transfer case to the front and rear differentials. The entire driveshaft rarely fails unless it suffers some kind of impact damage. Instead, what tends to go wrong are the individual components that make up the driveshaft. A typical driveshaft assembly comprises the following parts: one or more tubes acting as the body of the assembly, U-joints and or constant velocity, CV, joints that allow the assembly to move up and down, stirrups and flanges that connect the assembly to the transmission or transfer case, and differential. Long driveshafts also have a central support bearing that supports the middle part of the shaft. When one of these components fails, you're likely to notice one or more of the following driveshaft problems: abnormal noises. Driveshaft problems can lead to abnormal noises. When driveshaft seals are worn or in need of greasing, they often make a rattling, grinding, or squeaking noise when the vehicle is in motion. A worn center support bearing may also emit a grunting noise. Vibrations. In many cases, driveshaft problems cause vibration to be felt throughout the vehicle at higher speeds. The root cause of the problem is often a defective seal or center support bearing. An unbalanced, out-of-phase or incorrectly angled driveshaft can also cause vibration. Rattling sensation. Worn driveshaft seals can often cause a rattling sensation. The driver will usually notice the problem when changing gear or shifting from forward to reverse. In addition, a worn center support bearing can cause a rattling sensation when the vehicle travels over bumps. The entire driveshaft rarely fails unless it suffers some type of impact damage. How to tell if your driveshaft is defective. Other problems can mimic a bad driveshaft, so you need to carry out a thorough inspection to determine whether the driveshaft is to blame. The following steps will give you an idea of what to look for. Visually inspect the entire driveshaft. First, you'll want to carry out a visual inspection of the entire driveshaft. Look for obvious problems, such as dents in the driveshaft tube, which could be causing imbalance and vibration. You'll also want to check for undercutting or excessive mud, as such problems can upset the balance of the driveshaft. Check joints and bearings for excessive movement. You can check joints for excessive movement by gripping the driveshaft and moving it up and down. Turning the driveshaft and fork, by hand, in opposite directions can also reveal joint problems. It's important to note that some joint problems may go unnoticed when the driveshaft is still installed in the vehicle. You may need to remove the driveshaft to carry out a thorough inspection of the joints. Before removal, remember to mark and index the driveshaft on the fork or differential flange to ensure that the shaft is reinstalled in the same position. If your vehicle has a center support bearing, you'll also want to check the bearing by rotating the inner race by hand while holding the outer race. The bearing's rubber isolator can also be checked by moving the driveshaft up and down while it's installed in the vehicle. Check seals for excessive movement by gripping the driveshaft and moving it up and down, or inspect the center support bearing by rotating the inner race by hand while holding the outer race. Check driveshaft balance, angle, and phase. Usually, external influences, such as impact damage and poor maintenance, are the only reason why a driveshaft may suffer from poor balance, angle, or phase. A driveshaft that has suffered impact damage may be out of balance. Most professionals check the balance of a driveshaft by measuring its runout with a dial indicator. It's also possible that a driveshaft that has been disassembled and reassembled incorrectly has an incorrect angle or phase. the angle is exactly what it sounds like, the angle at which the driveshaft is in relation to the vehicle. Phase, on the other hand, refers to the angle of the U-joint brackets in relation to each other. Professionals generally use an inclinometer to check these two conditions.